I'm Father Terrance, and in John 7:24, our Lord tells us, "Do not judge by appearance, but judge with right judgment." And he adds in Matthew 7, verse 2, "For with the judgment you pronounce, you will be judged, and the measure you give will be the measure that you get." Have you ever noticed how people read some headlines, they watch a few videos on the internet, they read a few articles, they talk to a few people, maybe even read a book, and based on that, they think they truly understand a situation and what's going on and who's guilty and who's not guilty. This applies to politics, it applies to current affairs, it applies to the goings-on in the church as well. And instead of presuming that someone is innocent until proven guilty, which is what we should do, it's the opposite. We presume that they're guilty even without a fair hearing or trial. We are quick to judge without knowing all the facts, without truly knowing the situation and the persons involved, without hearing both sides, and many times we judge without a spirit of humility and mercy. Question: is this how we want our judgment to go when we stand before the Lord? Probably not, right? It's actually called rash judgment, and it's a sin. Can even be a grave, can even be a serious sin, depending on the nature of the situation and the consequences of our rash judgments. On a church level, the commissioning of my religious institute was an eye-opening experience of this. We were commissioned by the Vatican in 2013, and in the midst of that, on the internet, there was a plethora of articles and posts explaining our situation. Even though it was not supposed to be a public affair, it was made a public affair by those who wanted to put pressure on the Pope and get public opinion in their favor. The internet personalities and even people writing books were telling people what was quote-unquote really going on in our institute, why the Vatican was unjustly persecuting us, and it was all totally skewed. Many of these internet and YouTube personalities didn't understand and didn't care to understand the real nature of our situation. They could care less about the vows of obedience that we made to the Church, especially to the Holy Father, and they were not interested in hearing and fairly presenting both sides. For them, it was an opportunity to smear and malign Pope Francis, frankly, and it was very early on in his pontificate. Much of it was right out of what I would call the traditionalist playbook, and they're doing the same things even nowadays in the Church in whatever diocese or place where they feel threatened or attacked or persecuted. It's actually kind of sickening behavior, and there's nothing traditional about it. Catholics traditionally don't attack or smear the hierarchy. Traditionally, they respect them, they defer to them, they assent to them. That's why those people who rashly judge and attack and accuse the Church and the Pope and the bishops aren't traditional. They are ideological. But going back to the situation in our institute, when I was in Italy in the midst of the commissioning, I would go around Italy, and even coming back here to the States and the U.S., I would have people come up to me and speak to me as if they knew the real situation in our institute. I know what's really going on, they would say. And all they knew was a partial and skewed version of the truth. It's kind of like someone telling you that they know exactly what's going on in your family, but they don't live in your home. They don't live with your mom, with your dad, with your siblings. And you live there, and you know that what they're telling you about your family simply isn't true. That would be a bit frustrating, wouldn't it? Be very careful about basing your judgments on what you read or see or hear from social media or the internet or books by people who speak much but know little. And be very careful about listening to and only understanding one side of a story. And please don't assume that you know the truth about a situation unless you really understand the situation and the people involved and the whys and the hows of things and the reasons behind certain decisions. But even then, even if you really do understand, be merciful in your judgments. St. Paul says in Romans 14:12, each of us shall give an account of himself to God, not an account of others, an account of yourself, an account of myself. And St. James adds in James 2 verse 13, judgment is without mercy to the one who has shown no mercy. So before you dive into the next and the newest and the latest and greatest church or political or social scandal, ask yourself first, how do I want to be judged by God? And then proceed with caution. I'm Father Terrance. Ave Maria. Thank you so much for listening. Please keep me in your prayers. I will keep you in mind as well. God bless you and take care.